In our previous videos, we looked at how to convert from one metric unit to another metric unit, and we used two different methods. In an upcoming video, we're going to be looking at how to convert from the American to the metric and from metric to American units using a chart that will be provided to you. This video will show you the basic process to determine whether the metric unit or the American unit is larger using that same chart. This chart shows us how to go from the American to the metric system and vice versa. We call it the American system. It is really the old English system, but nobody else uses it except for Liberia and Myanmar, so not a very popular system except for in America. We're going to convert between the American system and the metric system and do a whole bunch of different conversions. This chart will be given to you on the exam. It'll look just like this except for two things. It will not have these stars on the left-hand side. Those are indicating that you should know which one is larger, whether an ounce is larger or a gram is larger, and down to is a quart bigger or is a liter bigger. So I'll be talking about that in this video. You will also not be provided this little note at the bottom that 1 cubic centimeter equals 1 cc equals 1 milliliter. You will need to remember that one. This video is going to focus on deciding which unit is larger. So we're going to go through a few of them. We're going to do some simple ones that you may already know. We're going to look at the inch and the centimeter first. So first we're going to look at, is 1 inch or a centimeter a larger unit? We know that 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start by drawing the 1. We'll draw 1 inch, and then we're going to put how many centimeters fit inside of that. So we're going to see 1, 2, and a little bit more than a half of a centimeter fits inside of the 1 inch. So which unit is larger? You should see that the inch is a larger unit. What about the meter and the foot? Let's draw first the 1 meter. We're going to put 1 meter down because we can easily draw that. And then inside of that, we're going to put approximately 3 feet. So 1, 2, 3, plus a little bit more, about a quarter of a foot. And that tells us that the meter is a larger unit than the foot. The meter's almost 3 times larger than a foot. Next, let's look at areas. So here we're asking, which is larger, a square meter or a square foot? Looking at our chart, we see that 10.76 square feet per 1 square meter. Notice that I said per, and that's just one way of writing a fraction. When you say per something, that means divided by that second thing. In this case, we would say there are 10.76 square feet per meter squared. Notice that I didn't put the 1 in, so a lot of times we don't write the 1 in verbally when we write in the word per. When we're trying to decide which is larger, it's easiest to draw the one with a 1 first. So I'm going to draw the 1 square meter first, and I'm going to put 10.76 square feet inside of that, almost 11 squares. You don't have to be super accurate here. You're just trying to decide which one's larger, and you should, of course, see that the square meter is larger than the square foot. In fact, it's very close to 10 times larger. You might be given the question and not have the chart with you, and it may ask you something like this: which is larger, a square meter or a square yard? And if I give you the image that you see here, which one would you say is larger? Well, you should be able to easily see that the square meter is the larger unit and the square yard is smaller. Each of the units shown has been divided into smaller fractions. So the square yard has the division of 1 foot squares. Those are, there are 9 square feet in a square yard. And then we see that in the square meter, there are 10 lines, so that means that there is a decimeter. And so that is 100 square decimeters is equal to 1 square meter. So if I were to ask you which is the larger unit, a square foot or a square decimeter, you should see that the square foot is larger. Again, that's just a visual. If you were to look at the chart, you could see that we have 1.2 square yards is equal to 1 square meter. And we will see that the 1 square meter is larger than the square yard. Now we're going to look at masses, which is something we can't really draw out. but I'm going to show you how you could model it. So since I don't have an actual measuring device to measure ounces and grams, we can still model it though, and we could just kind of draw it like we did with the ruler and length or in the area. So I'm just going to draw a square and say, okay, this is an ounce, and then I'm going to put 28.35 squares inside of that, and I should easily see that the ounce is the larger unit and the gram is the smaller unit. So now let's see if we can find a trend for all of what we just showed. So we can compare these. Let's look, and I'm going to highlight the one that is larger in each case. First, we compared the inch and the centimeter, and we found that the inch was larger. We also looked at the foot versus the meter, and we found that the meter was larger. Then we looked at square feet and square meters, and we found square meters was larger. We looked at square yards and square meters, and again we found that square meters was larger. And we looked at ounces and grams here, and we found that the ounce was larger. So it's not always that the American is larger, nor the metric, but what we do see is that there is a relationship that we can find that in every case, the one that has a 1 in front of it is the larger unit, and the one with a larger number, let's say the 28.35 grams, is a smaller unit. Now that is only true in this chart specifically because all of them were written with one of them equal to 1 and the other one is something larger than 1. If it were smaller than 1, we would get a different answer. This is the chart that you will be provided on the exam, so you should always be able to tell which unit is larger. The one with the 1 is the larger unit, and of course that means that the one with a number other than 1 is the smaller unit. And again, on the exam I could ask either direction. And just as a final note, if I asked you which is the larger unit of 1 cubic centimeter or 1 cc or even 1 milliliter, you would see that all three of those are equal. So none of them would be larger and none of them would be smaller.